being that I am someone who was raised up in church consciously since 7 years of age, and it's been a long road to travel till I was 50 years of age. When I talk today, I'm full of passion, and sometimes, I feel so contrite about it because the weight of life that I bear throughout 50 years till I began to find out things that gives me a view of the world that I never had. All right, so now to characterize what I have found lately, because remember when we did the first video, it was the time when I learned certain things. But now I look back and I found out now, about 8 years now or so since then, I have learned some more things that since then that I never thought they were there for me to know, right? So that's basically what we want to talk about right now, because I didn't grow up with an interest in world history textbook, because diaspora mentality, we don't know about that. We know about the church, we know about the Bible, right? And so therefore, we African people are badly displaced and are mentally relegated to view the world as something very much different from what it is in a world history textbook. And I must also make the distinction between world history textbook that neither the church pay attention to, neither university pay attention, no school pay attention to world history textbook more than, very, very light things. But the world history textbook is certified by dozens of academic consultants and teacher reviewers. Now, why is it that the world history textbook is certified academically as a civilized information that talks about the past? I mean, everybody has a birth certificate, and your birth certificate is a certificate certified officially that it will identify you as long as you live, right? Now, the Bible is not like that. The Bible has no certification whatsoever. And that is a big knowledge for people to understand, that the Bible is not certified by anyone. Not even a kindergartner, first day in class, has not certified the Bible that Adam and Eve is a real story. Now, think about that. World history textbook, especially we African people, because the world history textbook that is certified, it only feature African people as civilized people. Can you imagine that? That the world history textbook does not say European or civilized. That's shocking to me. And they are the one that's ruling the world. Now, do you get that? That civility only comes from Africa?
Right.
All right, so now that is very important for people to understand, because now things have twisted around a bit, and when I get to the 509 BC and what happened in the world, that I have never heard anybody in church talk about it. I've never heard anybody anywhere talk about 509 BC. So it's about a year and a half or two ago, I got the gift of two history textbooks, National Geographic copy and a Printisol. Somebody gave me those two books. It's a Catholic man gave them to me. And I knew that history was good, but I never grow up to like go after a history book to read it, right? And I was a Christian all of my life, right? And a good person. But I began now to read these books. And I always wonder, how did the white man came to start ruling the world? But I never hear anybody talk about that. How did the white man came to power? Nobody talk about that. Right. Never at all. So when I start to read the history book, I came upon a story about a coup d'eta in Italy.
Right.
How people moved into Italy in this area, this little place called Rome, from BC 700 and 600, people move into that area, and it's the area where an Etruscan Roman king ruled. And in that area, several kings ruled there. And this king that was ruling in this time, which the incident happened of 509 BC, he was the seventh final king to rule.
Right.
That is a Roman.
Okay, this was in Italy?
Yes, in Italy.
Okay, back then, okay, Rome.
Rome, Italy.
Okay, Rome, Italy. So there was a group of people
Who moved in.
who moved
from outer areas and move into that location.
Right, that
where
location.
The king ruled.
Where the Etruscans, Roman people were.
Yes.
Okay, in Italy. Okay.
Yes, and the word Roman, it's not a nation of people. It's like a group of people, who are black Romans.
Right.
Okay, because now if you talk about who are Romans, if you were to think, which people are called Romans today?
Do you know?
Do you know which group?
It's supposedly, based on what we thinking is the Italians are the Romans, right? The Italians. That's how they see their past, as their past was the Romans.
Today, from me reading about the Roman king that was overthrown, I realized that it was more of a black title to be called Roman.
Right.
Okay? But not like you would look at Chinese or Indians or something like that. Okay?
Right.
So this was an African king ruling in Italy. And he was overthrown by the European group of people.
Okay.
All right. Now, this is what makes the story interesting. Not just to me, but to all of us. From what I observe is that Europeans are in Europe since about 1.8 million years ago. They left by ancestors. They left Africa and traveled into Eurasia, into Asia and into Europe.
Right.
By their ancestors or Homo erectus.
Right.
Homo erectus. They are not civilized beings, they are evolved creatures. Africans are hybrid. They have the blood of the gods. And that is what the Europeans seek to hide,
Right.
because we are hybrid. And it doesn't say that in the Bible, though the Bible is talking about Adam and Eve in a garden. Adam and Eve in a garden, I mean, since the Bible 1700 years ago, why? There was no need to write the Bible. But the European, they have a need to write the Bible. And when did they look at the time when they wrote that Bible? It was between 63 BC. 63 BC. This was right in the time of the 19th century. A little later, they have the 19th century colonial, it's the colonial time when the European were invading. They started in Italy, invading in Italy from 509 BC. And after that, they spread on into New Zealand, into Australia, and they go into like 300 BC, they went into Israel as well, and they were not succeed. They did not succeed in overthrowing Israel at that time. So they went back 63 BC into Israel, and they stayed there until they succeed winning a war in 66 AD till 70 AD.
Okay, but the 509 BC, you said it was some people, some Europeans moved into Rome.
Into Rome, yeah.
Rome, and they
overthrow the king.
Oh, they overthrew that king.
Yes, the black king.
Okay, so they overthrew that king.
The Roman king.
Roman king.
Yes.
Who was a black king.
Yes.
Okay, and then now, what happened then?
Yes, I'm going to explain what happened at the coup. After the coup, the coup itself consists of the overthrow when the king was out of town, and clearly, what is known in history about who overthrew the king is, you could see there is a bogus story about who overthrew the king. However, based on what followed subsequently, it becomes clear to me who overthrew the king, that I can talk about it by the evidence that is there. Now, the European, they found out that the African people who came into existence long after they were there in Europe, when the gods created the hybrid and they began to multiply in villages and live in villages and stuff like that, the Europeans found out that these hybrid are intelligent and that they are, a people of enlightenment. And they decided to, this word called miscegenation, to mingle with the Africans. So they realized that the Africans have something that they want. And right now you can see where France and other places that is noted for the gods, a residence of the gods, where the gods live in those places. They have now taken over those places. And when they say go to France, it was all black people. And what they did was miscegenate, mingle with them until they get certain understanding, and then they kick out the black people and take over the place. And today, when you look at Greece and other places like that now, we know it to be European place, not black people place, because they done move out the black people and build their own culture to that place. This is what we have going on. All right, so go back now to the actual overthrow of a queen of super, they call him Superboss, the king. Once they overthrow him, what they did at that overthrow was, and by the way, it is important to point out that where the Pope is the spot that the king, where the king was overthrown. And just like in Israel, these Europeans, like common thieves that we know, thieves always run away from the spot that they steal things because they don't want to be caught. They don't have the civility to run from where they steal things. So their mentality is they take it and that it's theirs. You know, like I just take away your stuff. And once I take it away, I stay right there. I stay right in your house. I take your house away from you and stuff like that. And I don't run away. I stay because you cannot come back there. You cannot, when I take it over. Right. Well, this is exactly the way, like I tell you, that the Europeans are not civilized people. Hybrids are civilized, okay? So they are animal smart. And they feel like anytime they take things away from you, they don't need to run and go anywhere. They're going to stay right there, right? And there are several places that they have done that. Everywhere, like in Italy, they have done it. They have done it in New Zealand. They have done it in Australia. They have done, and
even here in America. Even in
exactly,
America.
Exactly. They don't leave.
That holds true because if you notice for real, when they started to go throughout the world, oh, I discover here, I discover there, and then they come and put their dominion and authority over people and then create their own laws and tell you, oh, they're telling you that you have to now adhere to their laws.
Yes, that's right.
And that's real.
And I tell you, this has never been talked about because, like I'm saying, I've never heard anybody talk about 509 BC.
Right. But how does it relate to 509 BC? All what you're saying, because I heard you say that there was the Romans had a king there. Well, it was a Roman king, and
yes.
These people came. These Europeans came and took over.
Yes.
The Roman king.
Yeah.
Okay, but
take
what
over the government.
Okay, they took but like what happened? I mean, and
yes.
then what?
All right. Let me try to speed on, move ahead with that. All right. The actual overthrow on 509 BC consists of they taking over the entire compound. Okay? They took over the military. They took over the dress code. Very important. Take the military and the dress code. Why? There's a reason for that. And that reason, you're going to see where we are today because of taking that military. Now, why you don't hear anybody talk about it? You don't hear anybody talk about it because it is so vital and it happened at such a remote time in the past, right? Society and the world was different. And these guys who do those things, they get to write history and to put things into society to make you don't think about what they did. And this is what is happening. All right, so they take the military, and another things that they took, you read about Enoch.
Yes.
You read about Enoch.
The book of Enoch?
The book of Enoch, right?
Yes.
There are stories about Enoch who was taken up to heaven.
Right.
All right? Now that's interesting, but that's African story about Enoch.
Right.
Okay,
Enoch,
it's African
Ethiopian,
story.
yeah.
Civilized story,
yeah,
that.
Enoch
Okay.
the Ethiopian,
all right,
yeah.
good. So now what happened is that they took the military and took over the entire compound, and the God's secret, all the sciences and everything that we have here today, it comes from the polytheism gods that brought everything 450,000 years ago. They brought everything that we have here today as food, clothing. They taught us to weave and to make clothes. The gods, the polytheistic God. The polytheistic God that created the hybrid to work for them and say primitive worker. It's the reason why when in history, it tells a full story about how we were created. When they came with the Bible, the European, and why they came with the Bible, is a new world order they were building, and they were going to wipe out the knowledge of the hybrid. That's why they write the Bible. And write a story that is absurd and ridiculous. Because we were created like some, at least 200,000 years, long time ago, when they come in 1700 years and write in the Bible.
Right.
And to say it's Adam and Eve, which of course, something has to be wrong with us to believe that Adam and Eve was really in a garden, because there's nothing to substantiate that. Nothing at all. All right. So go back now to when what they did. And look, they had a very firm objective or agenda to wipe out the intelligence of the African hybrid people when they did that coup of 509 BC, right? And the military, because they didn't have anything. And they didn't have any enterprising establishment in Europe at all. So they took everything from us and decided that they were going to like dump us somewhere, and took all of the little intelligence that they can take, except they are humanoid. They are not civilized. So they can take smart. Just like if you take a cat, and if you could make a cat speak like a human, and give it some dexterity, like a human being, you'd be surprised to know how smart a cat is if you can let them talk and relate to what they feel and what they, and what they can do, right? Even a dog, if you could make a dog talk and stuff like that. A parrot can talk and say things like that, so you can see how smart they are. All right, so if you give them like hands or something like that, you'd know how smart they are, right? Well, the Europeans are basically like that. They are in human body, but their mentality is not really.
It's like a Neanderthal. That's what they like to say.
But that's where they come from. They came from the Homo erectus and the Neanderthal. That is in history now. We're not like trying to do anything any negative to these people. That's the history. So you can see the way they behave, war and things like that, and fight, and they don't have a spiritual life. Now, they don't have any reason to write the Bible except they want to destroy the African hybrid. That's the reason why they write the Bible. And say they have a new world order and AD Anno Domini. And I'll tell you, we'll get to the point where they came in with AD Anno Domini, and why they came in with it was simple because we paid them no attention after they did the coup. All right, what they did with the coup, they have the compound, they have everything, and they have the secrets of the God. And the reason why they are so useful today is because they stole the secrets that the king had. The Noah, the Enoch secrets, right? That nobody is supposed to have, saving the king and the priests. Now, when you look at what they call Catholic Church, or Roman Catholic Church, it should not be Roman Catholic Church. It should be only Catholic Church. Because here you have the white Europeans wearing African title. They are out there with a military, using the dress code of the Roman king that they kicked out, where the Pope is today. A lot of people don't know that it was an overthrow that put the Roman Catholic priest where he's at. But it was that overthrow why he is resident where he's at today, right. 2,600 years ago.
Okay, so this starting point was at 509 BC.
Yes, that's where the overthrow took place, 509 BC. Okay. All right, and it is important to see that, to know who these Europeans were, what they had as wealth or stuff like that. They didn't have anything. They're nomad criminals, and they are, primarily their culture. Today, they are still not a civilization. They are just a culture, and a culture that is sodomy. And the reason why you see they are in the Western Hemisphere, it is because they cannot build a civilization, and they turn on the African people, take away everything from them, because as you can see, all those places that we named that they conquest, they take it over. And very important thing, the kingship of Africa is a government that's been in place since the gods came to earth and established civility on the earth, right? Kingship, and it's in history, but you don't hear about it because the Europeans, they come in with their so-called military power, and they are writing all kind of things and setting up a new world order. So that's the reason why we don't know anything about that. Black people have a government, but they have stripped us and stopped us from having our own government. And guess what? It just cannot happen when we come to know, because in the United States Constitution, it says that you are endowed with inalienable rights by your Creator. Now, think about why they wrote the Bible. Think about why they wrote the Bible. They wrote the Bible because they have to get rid of the hibernation of the African hybrid. They have to get rid of that. And Genesis creation story does that for them. Once you believe that, you are no longer endowed by the gods or the polytheism gods. They have you under Adam and Eve creation that did not exist. So you want to lose your inalienable right? Believe in the Adam and Eve story, and you don't have any creator anymore.
African was a Roman king. There
Yes.
was a Roman king.
Yes.
And these Europeans in around 509 BC came in and overthrew.
Yes.
Yeah, but we look at Europeans, well, those Europeans who we see today, we look at them as they are the Romans. I'm
Yes.
trying to get that. That's what I'm trying to get about the 509 BC.
Okay,
It seems like these Europeans came in, met Africans that were Romans, and overthrow them, and now take on their identity.
Yes.
Am I?
You're correct. You're correct.
Okay.
You know what they did not do? And what makes the difference? Mm-hmm. They took all of the hardware and software from, it's just like I take away your clothes and everything from you and begin to wear it and look like you. But guess what? I don't have your birth certificate, right? I cannot be you. Well, that's what they did. They didn't carry on kingship. There's no kingship government that they came in with democracy. They came in with democracy, voting and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Kingship doesn't vote. Kingship is ruled by a king, mm-hmm. queen, or monarch mm-hmm. in a bicameral chamber. Right. That's kingship. They come in with sodomite, different what you
and
call it.
Kingship is like it's God elect. It's like the God's elect, something like that. It's not
they arrange mm-hmm. A government that is called kingship. Mm-hmm. Period. Came here, and it was many of them, right? So they established their government here for themselves. When we came along, we inherited that government. They handed over to us in Kish. Okay? Now, it is a planetary, it's a global government. Kingship. So when they came and they overthrew that king, the African political system should have chased them out, because they cannot rule kingship, and kingship is bloodline. Unless you are of the gods with intelligence, with the type of civilized mind, you cannot rule over organized society. So if you look at history, you will find that but the Christian entity totally, I mean, drive a different type of perception into people so that we don't grow up and know about kingship, okay? So what they did, you asked a question about, we look at the Pope now that is called the Roman Catholic Pope. He's not supposed to be called Romans because he's not. How, and this is what I found out and why your question is very profound and I want people to listen to it, right? Why do we look on them as Romans? We look on them as Romans because when they took the army and took the dress code and went out and began to conquest the African society, they were perceived as the Roman army, the real Roman army, when they were not.
Right, because
So
they took it over. They took over and impersonate.
They impersonate.
Right.
They have been impersonating.
Right. As if they're Romans. That's deep because all the time I'm thinking Europeans were Romans.
Yes.
So the actuality is the Africans are Romans and the Europeans took it over, and overthrew, the Africans, and now they are acting as if they're Romans.
Yes.
They took all their sciences and technology and
yes.
stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what happened. Now, that's the reason why.
And this was starting from 509 BC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, had the Roman political system chase them out and get things back on track, we wouldn't have this problem today. But they did not. And because people perceive them like they are legitimate government operative,
Right.
over 400.
It was like a coup.
It was a coup, and because at that time nobody paid them attention, the African government did not pay them no attention, and they were left to conquer the African society and make them what they call it now, important. What happened that very day when they overthrow the king? They call themselves the Roman Republic.
Why is that important?
It is important because it goes along with the military dress code that they are Romans. So you see the army, it's a Roman Republic and their army out there. It's the same mimicking, false cop, false military.
Right.
So that gave them all of this false credibility over 400 and something years. That they've been going all over Italy and these other places. How did they get into Egypt and destroy Egypt, the library and everything, and almost destroy the Sphinx? How did they get in there? They get in there because they are under the assumption as being Romans.
Right.
Which they shouldn't.
Right.
Now, the question is, are they legitimate today? Are they a legitimate government today?
I see it's the same type of operations they've been doing. Going into
It's a scam. It's a scam.
Yeah, going into people's countries
Yes.
and
It's a scam.
And putting their authority and their dominion over everybody else, especially indigenous people who've been on this planet for how long? It's like that's what's going on. The scam keep going on.
So 509 BC, that's where it started.
And they pose as if they're the people of that.
Yes.
Just so it
No.
all adds up. It all adds up.
Look here. Do you know it's 1973 in their reign in the United States, over from back in the 16th century or somewhere there, back there, 16th, 17th century, they are sodomites, right? And they have been acknowledging that it is a brain thing. When, for you to think as a sodomite, it is a brain dysfunction, and because they are evolved creatures, they are evolutional creatures. They are not civilized people. So they are like the lower animals, like a dog. They mate with dogs anyway, and that is not something that is negative. It is true because it's all over the internet. They brag about it. Obama make sodomy law in 2015. We African people are being put where we are because guess what? We do not defend our own kingship power on earth. They are not supposed to be here talking about that they're ruling us because, number one, they are bogus. What I am saying here, it's in the world history textbook. There's just no way that we must allow these people to come here and do what they are doing. No, it must stop right now. We need to kick them out, tell them to go back over there and go do what they're doing. They can't come here and plaster us with sodomy. As a matter of fact, are they a civilization? No. Who do they have as civilization? The Western world. They don't have no right to be in the Western world. They need to go back to Europe in the Northern Hemisphere. They come and take over everything that we have and say it's theirs. That's schizophrenia. Okay? This is what, no, but I'm telling you, we African people, we need a spanking. We need a spanking.
Right, yeah.
So clearly there's a lot to this, okay? Because after they were free to go and conquest the African territories.
No. After that takeover on 509 BC, they took over and now they started to impersonate themselves as Roman now.
Yes.
No, fast forward now because I see that this is how we now start this AD calendar starting to come in. You know what I mean? Fast forward a little bit and tell us about this.
Okay.
Because now, after they started to impersonate Romans, it seems like they went into Judea and started to, expel the real so-called, the Jews or the Israelite people, and then now impersonate them too as well.
Yes.
And this is where all this Bible and then this Christian and talk to me.
You got it right. You got it right.
Fast forward.
It's like the world went into a free fall of ignorance by Sodom. Sodomy became official. Sodomy, and they use all of this subtle that they have, tricks, right? Because when they get to write a Bible and put the Adam and Eve story, that's illegal, Right now, the Bible is illegal because the world is run by kingship. Right now, it's simply because we don't enforce it. Okay? All right. So we are talking about after they have like 400 years. After they have like 400 years to roll free and...
We're talking after the 509?
Yes, after the overthrow.
Okay, after the overthrow.
They're using the military all over the place, going to Egypt and everything,
right.
And New Zealand and stuff like that, killing everybody and taking over, stuff like that. No, they're using our military and using the Roman clout and stuff like that.
Right.
They're hardcore criminal.
Right.
That we have here, and then we come to, because we did nothing, they were able to advance and consolidate their power using a bubble, a cleaved bubble system. So here we have the God's kingship government to rule over orderly society, taken over by sodomites, right, and calling themselves the government, But now this is time they say they are Democrats, and they are actually putting the black African people to become citizens of their government. Imagine, which they don't have a government, but because they are under the assumption of Romans, right? They had enough time to observe that African people ain't going to stand in their way. They realize they can do anything to consolidate their bubble system. So it came down to 63 BC when they go into Israel. And they would not let go until they realized that, okay, they can change the calendar. And they did. And they find out that there's nobody coming after them. They find out that they can do this on planet Earth and actually take over the entire place. The sodomites decide that they can do it because African is like they're afraid of them. You see what I mean? They'll kill you, they'll do anything to you and stuff like that. And that gives them the confidence. They cannot be wrong. And the popes, and they make the title of the popes and stuff like that, and make all of these sodomites guy. I mean, you can say they're 100% sodomite, but they have the biggest title. And you see the church, the cardinals and stuff like that. These guys are, it's the mecca for molesting children and stuff like that. So that is to show you that 1220 AD. See, AD and Adamani is something that should be thrown away a long time into the place back there.
Right.
AD and Adamani is nothing at all but a sodomite, cesspool stuff. That is not for the civilized world on earth at all, right? But this is where we are because we do nothing. When good men do nothing, this is what happened. So they came up with all these titles that is based on Roman, Roman power.
Right.
Now, so we are at 63 BC.
Right.
So remember, they clean up, they conquest all of the African world by then, but 400 years, 509 BC, way down now to 63 BC. That's about 470 something years. About 470.
Right.
All right, good. So now they have all the confidence to rule the world. So what they do now, begin to, like you say, now make the Bible. Use all kind of stuff and a 66 book and the Nicene Council with what you call the emperor there, Constantine.
Right.
Yes, they build up because these guys are brutal, you see, and they put their vision in place, and Africa will not touch them. So all the African people get killed and everything like that because African politics don't protect them at all. And these guys, they shock, they just, they just lynch the black people, do whatever, sodomize them, do anything they want to do. And today, right now, we are not protected. All right, so talk about now how they build the Bible. The Bible was produced between 63 BC in Israel. And if you read about what they do to the Israeli black people, you're sorry, you grieve, you see, because they kick them out. They kick them out.
Right. And this is really, whatever you're saying is really right, because when I think of it, based on the history, these Romans, the fake Romans,
Yes.
who to impersonate,
Yes.
who overthrew the real Romans and took on their identity, came into Judea.
Yes.
And they in turn now start kicking out the real,
Yes, the real,
and expelling them from there and taking on,
Yes.
doing the same thing.
Yes.
What they did to the Romans.
Yes.
Now start to take on their
Yes.
identity.
Yes.
As if they're the Jews now.
Yes.
They're the Jews.
Yes, but they do. Yes, and as a matter of fact,
So we're seeing where this is going.
in the Bible, I tell you about the greatest asset we have of what these people have done. And why it's easy to drive them out back to their sodomy land is because of their ignorance. Because you see the Bible? We need to kick the Bible out of our society today, right now. Because what they write in the Bible at first, when you read the Bible itself now, it's evidence against them. Evidence number one, that they said Jesus was a Jew, right? And Jesus was a black man.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
All right. How do you get people to now accept Jesus as a white man in the Bible and say, we don't really care what Jesus' color is? What happened to that? Mental retardation. Over time, they get African people mind to be retarded. We become schizophrenic like them and less than them.
Think about this too. That whole Jesus story too as well is supposed to be their interpretations. Well, supposedly the original people who were there were always looking for a Messiah, someone who would drive out the Romans or something like that, you know? Not somebody who comes there to save their soul to go into heaven.
You are pointing to something very significant, because you know what? That is cutting the jugular vein to the Christian concept. Now, if they are saying that the word of God, when God speaks, his word does not return void. Isaiah 9 is a prophecy. Now, the prophecy of Jesus, it doesn't matter how many prophets prophesy, it has to say the same thing, right? Well, let's stick with Isaiah 9, 6 and 7. It says, unto us a child is born, a son is given, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and the Prince of Peace. Of the rule and government there shall be no end upon the throne of David to order it. The zeal of the Lord will perform this. Now, did that say anything about blood? Did that say anything about a cross? Did that say anything that a man should be killed? Does the not recipe, but the prescription of the prophecy is the 6th and the 7th verse. Did anybody die in that? Is supposed to die for sin or not? Did anything about Adam and Eve's sin come into that prophecy?
No.
All right. Now, can anybody say that Jesus came and fulfilled that prophecy? To this day. Now, you just brought the point up. Look how deep this point is that you brought up. The prophecy must be fulfilled. These sodomites are writing all kind of bogus stuff. And you see, once you get somebody to believe something, they don't bother pay any attention to whether or not it is true anymore.
Right.
You know, once you're confident, have your confidence in something, you trust it. Well, here we have the prophecy there, still not fulfilled. And we have, I don't know how these guys get away with the kind of ignorance in the Bible. But stick to that prophecy now, because, you know, this is the kind of thing where our attention keep on drifting away from hardcore fact that we must use and stick it to them and say, you know, go back home. You see?
Right.
Because the prophecy right to portray more of what the African people back then thought about. They were not thinking about no Adam and Eve or nothing like that. They were looking for somebody like David to come back, somebody like him to rule and beat out people like what the so-called Romans.
Right. Totally different from what saving your soul, the blood of Jesus going to heaven.
Different from what the New Testament says, or what they give you in the entire New Testament about Christ's the arrest, right, and the trial of Jesus, and how he was Pilate gave him over for them to crucify him and all that. That is not prophecy. How do they come up with something different from what they have in the prophecy?
Right.
And nobody don't notice that.
Right.
All right. But watch this now. That is bad, but more to make it worse.
Okay, so that's where we see, okay, so we was at a point of 63 BC where the fake Romans went into there, take over the Judea,
Yes.
and now take on the identity of Judea now,
Yes.
and then now so now we're going forward now,
Yes.
to
We're going forward to where they are taking on the character of the black Jews.
right.
You see, they're working on,
Israelite
they're
people.
working on that. And the Bible, they do, I think, more in the Bible that we are looking on now than they actually did back then.
This was when? What time period we look at?
We're still dealing in the 63 invasion.
Okay,
Because
okay.
they're going to stay there a mighty long time, quite a few years them staying here, right? It's like
Another 400
over 100 years.
So about 400 years. Fast forward to the time when they solidify everything now. They put everything down in paper with the Constantine.
Yeah, because they came in 63, right? So like 30 something years before they would have changed over to AD.
Oh, okay, the calendar.
Yes.
Right.
Right?
So
Good.
at this point, they changed the calendar.
Yes, they changed the
to
calendar.
AD.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. All right. No, they don't have any right to do that, you know.
Right.
Because-
Because we have thousands of years of history, and I wonder, like, well, why we only have 2,000?
We have a government jurisdiction that
Right.
they don't care about.
Okay, so so that's why this is where we seen it from. The Romans, the fake Romans invaded and impersonate the Romans. Fast forward to Judea.
Yes.
Into Judea, and then impersonate the Judea. Change
Yes.
this calendar, bring in some
Yes.
kind of a calendar now.
Exactly.
For this new AD calendar. So we're seeing where this thing is coming from. Okay.
And see, because of that foundation of being Romans,
Right.
that perception follow them wherever they go.
Right.
And they keep on changing their identity because they are now Jews, right?
Right,
And nobody don't call them to it and say, wait a minute, how do you become Jews? And you can't find none of the black Jews them no more.
Right.
You see, and Abraham again, right? So we talk about the prophecy when not fulfilled. That is something that we must throw away. We can't have them here spreading Christianity using our character doing it, right? No. So they say we were Jews. We were no Jews. They are making us Jews, right? So now they are saying Jesus was a Jew. No, we have everything different. All right, so right off the Jews now, because they might talk about Paul came in and they're bringing Paul to be converted by Christ after Christ went back to heaven. All these things are stuff that we should throw out long time ago, right? But we're still here
they're
preaching.
creating this
We're
stuff.
still
They're
going off
making-
what them say.
Right. They're making up all kinds
All
of
these stuff. All right.
To fit their
All right.
their
So we're still into the invasion of 63 BC now, right? So they are making us Jews. They changed the calendar to AD Anno Domini. So we are all into uncivilized territory now and forfeiture of our own kingship rule.
Right.
All right, so we're underneath them now and yielding to them. All right, so now from they change the calendar, we are on what you call it, uncharted territory.
Yeah, we're on the AD calendar now.
We
Fast
under the
forwarding
yes
to-
AD Anno Domini era now.
Right.
All right. So and we are totally conformed to Roman calendar, Romans numerals, and all this kind of stuff. And there is no Romans.
Right. Well, they're not the real Romans then. That's what.
And where there is no real Romans, you have no Romans.
I like it. Right. Correct.
We are cooked.
Right. Right. Right.
No, but why are we? But why? Why it happened to us? And we are the hybrid superior. I mean, people.
Right.
But I
But
think
no,
so.
no, no. Okay, now after all of that, we fall into the new calendar now. There's another point in history where this thing with Constantine.
Yes, we're moving. We're moving now because now we are under the AD era
Calendar,
now.
yeah. Now we're under the AD calendar,
Yes.
but no. Fast forward
All
a
right.
little bit.
Now the work on the Bible during they work on the Bible during
All that time there.
from 63 BC, right? Under that, they changed the calendar to AD and Adamani. All right, so now we are going to move on. We are going to move on to where they're going to arrange, because now 300 from when they said
325
325
AD.
AD.
Right, when
all right?
Constantine come into play now.
Yes, from AD first till 325 AD. All right, so that means the old polytheistic calendar is no longer in effect.
Right.
All right, so they're going to arrange the Nicene Council now. And that's when they're going to go worldwide with the legacy of 509 BC
Right.
and the
right.
Roman image that they take on.
Right. Because this is when the Roman, the church, the Pope,
Did
the
everything
highest order.
explode, and they have
This is when they went into the
consolidated
world. They went into
themselves.
the world now and they say every other people is the subject to them.
Yes.
And like bringing the AD calendar now to everybody else in the world, and right that the Christianity too as well.
Yes. So now we find the significance in 509 BC that nobody's talking about. Because remember now, if you cannot remember or have something to identify when you were born, you're as good as nobody don't know anything about you. You have to know when you were born.
Right.
All right. Well, what happened 509 BC? The significance of it. If you don't know nothing about it, the calamity that is happening to us right now, that's why it is happening. Because think about what Marcus Garvey has said. What's his name? Martin Luther King, right? Malcolm X, all of these guys, right? Look at all the things that they have said and attacked the white people and stuff like that. They have not touched the right button at all. Because you don't hear nobody say anything about where these guys get them power from. Right. And they are cloaking under the Romans, and nobody will pull them out from underneath that. Right. Say, no, but you're bogus. Right. You're bogus. What are you doing here? Right. Nobody will call them.
And we talk about the Roman, the Roman Catholic Church.
The
Holy
Catholic,
See.
yeah, they established that.
This mafia organization
exactly
that is ruling, the world with this AD calendar.
Yes, I mean Dionysus, the Pope, that the Pope asked to write the calendar. Right, and then Christmas and all these things are become a cultural thing and stuff like that now. So New World Order, the evil New World Order was born.
Right. This is deep.
And then you have a guy wrote a book right now. I probably told you about it, Ken Spiro. Ken Spiro wrote a book called Word Perfect. And he spoke of Abraham, and he spoke of over the past 4,000 years that they have noticed the Western world. Western world is is the civilized African they're talking about,
Right.
They don't have nothing to do with it. But it's going to show you their grip on us because of the Roman concept.
Right, right.
He said that they have noticed over the past 4,000 years how the West have changed and how a tiny group of people have such effect on human civilization. Remember, human civilization is not Europe, it's the African people. So they are owning us as their civilization. And he says they realize how monotheism take off.
Right.
Now, monotheism is the concept that Abraham found one God, which is a lie. History debunked that, no questions asked. Okay? And what they have used our character to do is they build Christianity on Abraham faith, Islam, and Judaism. And those are all phony institutions. But they have legitimized to people, and people buy into it. African people buy into it, right? And he said that monotheism has taken off, and it is monotheism. Abraham, the big discovery of Abraham was finding one God, and because of that, the world suck it up that Abraham, and nobody has asked the question, but Abraham is a polytheistic. No, all of those things, they wash them away. Nobody think about it. And Abraham, monotheism, they call it, gave birth to the one God, gave birth to monotheism and Judaism. So they invented Judaism. We never had no Abraham and no Judaism, but they create a Abraham and say it is his children that continue to carry on Judaism. Nothing don't go like that. They are reading Bible where these white men wrote.
Right, right.
And of their contrivance, because they contrived Judaism. They contrived Abraham. Abraham talked to God out of the sky. Abraham was told by God to offer sacrifice upon Mount Moriah of his one son and all that. Those are all sodomite contrivance.
Right, right.
So we go into Constantine, where they draw up the council. And remember now, these people are looked upon like they have authority to establish any institution because they're Romans, right?
Right.
Which is a fake. And now Constantine is now going to make Christianity a legal religion, right? Upon the assumption that they are a legitimate power, and they are not. And then Christianity became legal because of AD Anno Domini. That is a hoax. AD Anno Domini has no fleshy legs to stand on. It's prosthesis.
It's deception.
Deception. And why is the world in the shape it's in? Simple because we don't know the difference between knowledge and belief, faith and hope. We don't know the difference between it. We don't have a word, science, knowledge at all, and we are dead.
Right, right, right. Man, that's deep, man. So we really got to find a way to get ourselves out of this trap, this deception that we're in, you know?
What you say to resolve this? How do we resolve this? Knowing these things, what are we supposed to do? I mean, we need the education to get us out of believing nonsense. Because belief doesn't make anything happen. It's knowledge that makes things happen. And we need to wake up to that. You know, stop going to the church because the church is not even as good as a dance hall.
right?
No,
Same
church
thing.
has corrupted. Church is the number one thing that corrupts our brain. The number one. Every Christian is schizophrenic. Every single one is a schizophrenic.
Right.
That might sound rough, but we are socially functional. But when it comes to being spiritual, we are not. And it is ironic because we think the Bible is a spiritual book. The Bible ain't a spiritual book at all. The Bible, I mean, the world history textbook is a spiritual book because in one feature thing in the world history textbook, under religion, religion is not church, religion is the polytheistic life of the hybrid people. If anyone would like to write to me, I am someone who I like to talk. And especially when you want to talk about our civilized existence. My last breath is to talk about that, right? You can write to me at www.timothyaldred.com. And that is Aldred spelled A-L-D-R-E-D. Timothy, Timothy. And write me because I am going to write you back. So that's for sure.